Namaskar, Nileshok here. My greetings to all of you on the auspicious day of Deepavali. This would be part 2 in this series on Draupadi Vastraharan. Draupadi Vastraharan did not happen. A case study. This would be part 2. If you have not seen part 1, very important, critical, and of course, common sense speak, you must go back and watch part 1. Let's continue where we left last time. Draupadi was brought to the Kaurava court, and at one point, Karna asks Dushasan to remove the upper garments of Pandava brothers and also remove the garment of Draupadi. Pandava brothers remove their Uttariya, upper garment themselves, put it aside, and they all sit down. At this point, Dushasan starts pulling the garment of Draupadi. We saw as the Mahabharata narration continues, as given in the Gita Press edition, Draupadi began praying to Krishna, also started crying, understand she is scared. Krishna heard, she's feeling insulted, I would say more than scared. Krishna heard her request. That's what Gita Press edition Mahabharata text tells us. And Krishna appeared, Bhagavan Krishna appeared in the form of a cloth and covered Draupadi with multiple pieces of clothing. Draupadi's clothing were replaced by identical pieces continuously. This is very important to keep in mind. The other statement, the next statement, it says, and clothing of different colors began appearing. So a bit of a confusion as to were they identical or were they of different colors and therefore not identical, or maybe identical in a certain aspect of it. Let's say if it's a sari, it was another sari, but of a different color. The details are not available, but I do want everyone listening to note down these nuances. And I said the last point here, heap of clothing, because of this supposedly Dushasan's action, pulling these garments from Draupadi, multiple garments, as they miraculously continue to appear, a heap of clothing accumulated in the middle of court was seen, or so it appears. Now, I put a few asterisks next to it because in the sequence, it's not exactly after 1, 2, 3, 4. What I mean by that is there are multiple things happening in the court. And of course, what we can say, this is a limitation of a narration, that you have to describe one instance and then you can describe another instance, even when it is occurring simultaneously. Instead of a narration, if it was a movie scene, let's say, multiple things could be shown together. Multiple people talking could be shown together. We see that all the time. However, when it is encoded into a narration, it must be stated in a linear fashion, although the incidents may be happening simultaneously. That's why I put the asterisk. And now we will see the connection of this when we continue our narration from the Gita Press edition of Mahabharata. When that started happening, which is to say, when Dushasan started pulling the garment of Draupadi, there was a great commotion. It's a great insult. She's a queen, she's princess, and not an ordinary queen. She's a wife of Pandava brothers. People present in the Kuru court, they began praising Draupadi and insulting Dushasan. This is right in the Kuru court. This is right in the court of Dhritarashtra. Keep this in mind. Okay, that's like a audience response. That's like a response of the people who are seeing this happen in front of their eyes. So they started praising Draupadi and insulting Dushasan. At this point, angry Bhim loudly proclaims, saying that he, that is Bhima, will drink the blood of Dushasan, okay, who has touched the garment of Draupadi and pulling it. People started insulting Dushasan and praising Bhim. Keep in mind, this is happening right in the court of Dhritarashtra. Let's continue in that same sequence. I'll go back for a second, just so that you don't miss this point. So Dushasan started pulling the garment of Draupadi. There was a great commotion. People present there started praising Draupadi, insulting Dushasan. At this point, angry Bhim loudly proclaims that he will drink the blood of Dushasan. People started insulting Dushasan and praising Bhim. And the next verse says, insulted and tired, Dushasan sat down quietly. Again, there are two asterisks. In this particular shlok, in the Mahabharata text, Gita Press text, that is where that other half appears, where it's said that a pile of garments accumulated, or a pile of garments is that pile of garments could be seen, were there, or garments accumulated on the ground as Dushasan is pulling, okay? And in that verse, it says, insulted and tired, Dushasan sat down quietly. Now, many translators, interpreters, commentators have taken this Dushasan's sitting down because he was tired. And why he was tired? Because of the pulling of these multiple garments. Just keep that in mind, okay? So that's how people have translated, people have interpreted, and is there a basis for it? Yeah, because in that one particular shlok, it says a heap of garments would be seen, appeared on the floor there, and insulted and tired, Dushasan sat down quietly. At this point, members of the court started insulting Dushasan. Like, he has sat down, keep in mind, okay? But they are insulting Dushasan for his act. And they also started insulting Dhritarashtra. At this point, Vidur stood up, asked all of those members present in the Sabha to be silent, and said a few things. For example, he reminded the audience there that Draupadi has raised her question multiple times and is crying helplessly. That's what Vidur says at this point. What is that question that Draupadi is asking multiple times? If you remember, great. If not, go back to part 1, which is, did Yudhishthir lost himself in the game of Dyuta first and then wagered Draupadi, or was it the other way? And so far, no one has clearly answered this except Vikarna and to some extent Vidur. But Vikarna has said that that Yudhishthir has no right to put Draupadi. She's not been won by the Kauravas. But Yudhishthir is not saying anything. Bhishma expressed his helplessness in giving his clear opinion. He said it is a question meant for Yudhishthir, and Yudhishthir is the right person to answer it. But Yudhishthira is not answering. Vidur continues, he says, Vikarna did his job of adding his opinion, and that Vidur now wanted other members of the court to speak up. In this particular context, Vidur narrates a relevant upakhyan. Again, I'm going to encourage all who are interested, serious, those who are truly serious to know this, and if they're interested, to read this relevant upakhyan. I am not going to go into it to avoid a digression and lose the focus. But as I said, it's a relevant upakhyan. Even when Vidura completes that narration of upakhyan, still no one says anything. At this point, Karna asks Dushasan to take Draupadi to Dushasan's house. Next, Dushasan started pulling Draupadi. Now, this is not to confuse with Dushasan bringing her to the court by holding her hair, or Dushasan trying to pull her garment. This is not to be confused. This is after those facts, okay, after those incidents. Here now, after that whole incident, Dushasan has sat down. Many members are insulting Dushasan, also Dhritarashtra. After that, Vidur stands up, silences everyone, again reminds the audience that Draupadi has raised a question and no one has answered. Vidura narrates a relevant upakhyan. After all these instances, Karna is asking Dushasan to take Draupadi to Dushasan's house. Dushasan started pulling Draupadi, okay, while Draupadi is shivering and calling for help from Pandava brothers. These narrations are in the Gita Press edition, Sabha Parva, Adhyay 68. Draupadi pleaded to the court, made them realize her position. Essentially, she is repeating her arguments, asking that same question, making additional points. Bhishma responded, and essentially he's repeating his position. We saw that in first part, saying that the dharma is settled and suggesting that Yudhishthira is the right person to answer her question. Bhishma has taken this position before the so-called incident of Vastraharan, like Dushasan pulling her garment. But he is repeating, Bhishma is repeating this position, and this can be read in Sabha Parva, Adhyay 69. As soon as Bhishma says this time, Duryodhan diplomatically repeats this suggestion of Bhishma and asks Draupadi to ask her 5 husbands for the answer to her question. Again, I will not repeat the question. At this point, some praised Duryodhan, saying, yeah, Duryodhan is making a just point. Okay, maybe his sycophants. We don't know who they are. Okay, but some people praised Duryodhan at this point when Duryodhan suggested to Draupadi that she should ask her 5 husbands, while others shouted against his suggestion. All were, of course, curious to hear what Pandavas say. At this point, Bhima stands up and says that if Yudhishthir was not their head, the eldermost brother, and also their king, the king of Indraprastha, we would not have tolerated this injustice by Kauravas. Please pay attention to these words of Bhima. He says, if Yudhishthir was not our head, we would not have tolerated this injustice by Kauravas. So Bhima, in his mind, very clear that what occurred there is injustice done by Kauravas to Pandavas, but also to Draupadi. Then he says, Yudhishthir is everything to us, the elder brother. He lost me at the game. That is to say, Yudhishthir lost Bhima at the game. And thus, Bhima says, therefore, he is helpless. Otherwise, anyone touching Draupadi would not survive. and would not survive, namely in the hands of Bhima. He continues. He says, if Yudhishthir gives me order, I will kill Kauravas with my hands. Right here, I have underlined this particular point, highlighted it, like made it bold. Keep that in mind. Bhim says, if Yudhishthir gives me order, I will kill Kauravas with my hands. At this point, Bhishma, Drona, and Vidur calm down Bhima, saying, Bhimasen, please forgive these Muda folks. You are indeed capable of doing what you are saying. This is in Sabha Parva, Adhyay 70, Gita Press edition. All right. Interestingly, even after Bhima says this, lo and behold, Karna continued insulting Draupadi as Dasi. Bhima speaks angrily at Yudhishthir right there. Duryodhan asks Yudhishthir to respond to Draupadi's question. So think of it. This is multiple times happening. Bhishma suggesting that Yudhishthir should answer. Duryodhan taking that message and repeating it. So here again, Duryodhan asks Yudhishthir to respond to Draupadi's questions and then to encourage Karna and to insult Bhima. Duryodhan showed his left thigh to Draupadi. It's very important that you keep track of these instances in the proper sequence that they occurred, okay? This is supposedly after this miraculous event of Krishna appearing in the form of garments to protect Draupadi. And that event has occurred already. And now this continues. Karna calling Draupadi a Dasi, Duryodhan asking Yudhishthir to respond to Draupadi's questions, and he showing his left thigh to Draupadi. Naturally, Bhima's eyes became bloodshot and he vowed to break the thigh of Duryodhan during the war. Many people know this discussion, but many people miss the position of this actually occurring. Duryodhan showing his left thigh to Draupadi and Bhima taking this vow to break the thigh of Duryodhan during the war, which he does on the last and 18th day of the war, 2nd November 5561 BCE. At this point, Vidur states that sons of Dhritarashtra have lost the sense of dharma. These descriptions come in the Sabha Parva, Adhyay 71 of Gita Press. As far as the Draupadi Vastraharan incident is concerned, this narration is over. Quickly to summarize what happens after this, I will just state it here and we will stop. In the next part, we will start doing the analysis of what we went through in terms of narration in this part 1 and 2. But even before that, we will look at what the rest of the Mahabharata text, remaining 17 Parva, remaining 18 Parva, including rest of the Sabha Parva, what that portion of Mahabharata text, which is majority of it, has to say about this instance of Draupadi Vastraharan. But just to close the matter in terms of narration, what happens after this is Dhritarashtra recognizes the seriousness of situation, and in self-protection, frankly, again, that could be a totally different topic. I have no intention of getting into that now, and very likely never. Again, I will encourage people to read Mahabharata in the original if they are interested. But after Vidur states this and makes additional points, Dhritarashtra realizes that he needs to control the situation. He offers a boon, vara, to Draupadi, multiple ones, one at a time, and that way the Pandava brothers are freed, including Draupadi, and all their wealth is returned to them by Dhritarashtra, saying, "You are free. Please go back to Indraprastha and rule in a dharmic fashion." They return. Just to fast forward, Duryodhan, Shakuni, Karna are not happy. They plead with Dhritarashtra, convince Dhritarashtra, uh, and ask his permission to invite Yudhishthir again for another game of Dyuta in Mahabharata that is described as a Anu Dyuta Parva. Number of you would know it, but don't be surprised if many of you don't know this, that actually the game of Dyuta was played twice. The first time is this whole Draupadi Vastraharan incident and all that. The second time, the condition is different. That if Yudhishthir loses the game, then all Pandavas have to go to Vanavas for 12 years, followed by 13th year of Ajnatavas. And if they are found during it, then they have to go for a Vanavas again for 12 years and the 13th year of Ajnatavas. And this cycle continues. And actually that happens, right? They come back, Yudhishthir comes back for another round of Dyuta, loses everything, and they go into Vanavas, 13-year Ajnatavas at the court of Virata. After that, when they come out of Ajnatavas, they go Grahana Parva. And when the negotiations begin, Dhritarashtra refuses to give their kingdom back to them. And then the Mahabharata war happens. That's it, guys. Next time, when we begin in part 3, we will look at additional references in the context of Draupadi Vastraharan from the Mahabharata text itself. And what do they say? What is their relevance to this whole incident of Draupadi Vastraharan? We will analyze it in this series. Draupadi Vastraharan did not happen. I will talk to you soon. Please write your comments. Please stick to the topic of Draupadi Vastraharan. Do not digress. Greetings to all of you on the day of Deepavali. I will talk to you soon. Namaskar.